Okay, 7th grade, our second video for lesson 12.5 is going to cover sampling. We're going to describe what sampling means and look at sampling methods and decide if they're good sampling methods or not. One huge topic we discussed last year in pre-algebra was random sampling, the idea that they have to truly be random in order for it to be fair. The second big topic we talked about was bias, which that's going to be the third video for this lesson. So I'm going to come back to that note after we do some definitions. Two definitions we did talk about last year, population and sample. So if you remember, population is an entire group with a specific characteristic that you want information about. So for example, it could be all the middle school students in District 186 could be our population. A sample would be a subset of the population that is surveyed to gather information about the population as a whole. Okay, a sample is used especially if the population is too large to survey the entire thing, which you want to happen so that way you have more data and therefore accurate data. We're going to be looking at three types of sampling, but to clarify a little bit more with population and sample, back to what I said with population. Our population could be all the middle school students in District 186. A sample of that would be maybe 10 students from every class of every grade in our middle schools across the district. That makes our survey or our sampling method easier to approach. Okay, so our three types of sampling, we have random, systematic, and stratified. Now, just to start off with a note, systematic and stratified sampling are types of random sampling. They're basically more structured. So if you just want to stick with random sampling, that means you are going to ensure that this sampling method or this survey is done at random. So for an example, you could survey people whose name are pulled from a hat. Okay, so that's going to bring us up to our note. When sampling, in order for it to be truly random, everyone within the population should have a fair chance of being selected. Okay, so if we go to the idea of we want to survey a population of the entire middle school population of District 186, our random sampling method is we could pull 10 names from a hat of every class, of every grade, in the middle schools at District 186. That would give everybody a chance of being picked. We're just only going to pick 10 of those randomly. Okay, so I hope that helps explain that a little better. Systematic sampling, you select a number. They're going to use N to represent number at random, then survey every nth person. So for example, our class is numbered alphabetically. We can say, I'm going to choose every fifth person in that alphabetical list. And I can do that for every middle school class, for every grade in the district. Okay? And then stratified. Stratified's even more specific. Stratified sampling, you separate a population into smaller groups, each with a certain characteristic, then you survey at random within each group. Okay, so before I do the example I have written here, I'm going to stick with the example I've been giving. We could just say, out of all the middle school students in District 186, we're going to put everybody's name in one alphabetized list and choose 10 people at random. That would be random sampling. If we say we have the entire population of middle school students in District 186 on one alphabetized list, and then we choose every fifth person, that's going to be a systematic sample. Stratified sample would be, I'm going to separate into looking at every middle school in the district. For each middle school in the district, I want an alphabetized list. So that would be my smaller groups. Each of the smaller groups would be the middle school. And then I would still use a random sampling method or a systematic sampling method. So they really just get more and more specific. So here's another example of stratified sampling. Maybe you separate a high school into 4 groups by grade level, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, then survey a random sample from each group, as opposed to maybe just looking at the entire high school and choosing at random. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples to help clarify what that means and what these look like. So problem 3, you want to find out how many DVDs students at your school rent in a month. You interview every 10th teenager you see at the mall. What sampling method are you using, and is it a good one? So keep these separate. Focus first on what method is happening. Well, we are looking at a specified number. It's going to be random because it's just every 10th teenager that walks in, but it's going to be systematic because we're actually choosing every 10th person. So that would be systematic sampling. Okay. Now, before we choose to answer the second part of the question, I have a note here. The population, if you're wanting to only know how many students at your school rent a movie, you only want to focus on your students at your school. So if you're interviewing every 10th teenager at the mall, I'm going to go ahead and say it's safe to assume there's going to be other students in the mall that don't go to your school. So this would not be a good sample because it's likely to include teens that do not attend your school. Okay, so even though the method approach is a good one, how you're actually carrying out that method is not. Okay, and then our final example for this video is Got It 3. We're going to stick to the same idea, but you're going to revise your plan and interview all students leaving a school assembly who are wearing the school colors. What sampling method are you using? Is this a good sample? So we're not just randomly choosing students as they come out of the assembly. We're actually lumping them into categories. We're going to say students wearing the school colors versus students not wearing the student colors. Okay, so this would be stratified sampling. This is not going to be a good example because you're splitting the students into group by colors, but it's not specifically saying that you're including students from every color group. It's telling you that it's only including those wearing the school colors. So again, the approach is good. You're putting students into small groups, but you're only actually surveying one color group, the school colors. So this is not a good sample. This one's a little bit trickier because it does kind of lead you to the idea of, well, yeah, we're choosing a specific color. But stratified, remember, is that pickiest of the 3 types of sampling. In order for it to be truly random, after you split students into groups, you still want to sample somebody from each group. Or more, even better, multiple people from each group. Okay,